welcome in to another edition of the Panther Prowl here on the SDH Network. I'm Jason Longshore. Thanks for hanging out with me as we get caught up on everything soccer at Georgia State University. Both the men's and the women's teams are in season now for the Panthers, and you're going to hear from men's head coach Brett Surrency, and you're going to hear from women's player Aaliyah Faddoul in today's show. Let's get caught up on where things stand for both teams. We'll start with the men. Their season started last Thursday at the GSU Soccer Complex, hosting Belmont, and neither team could find the breakthrough. The match ended in a scoreless draw. The men were on the road earlier this week, Tuesday night, over in Birmingham, Alabama, and it was the Blazers of UAB who got a very late golazo to win that one 1-0. Madison Crews caught up with men's head coach Brett Surrency to talk about the start to the season and what he would like to see change as the Panthers go on the road on Sunday, a 2:00 kickoff on the road at Liberty. You can watch that match on ESPN+. And here's Madison's conversation with Coach Surrency.
Alrighty. Coach, I guess I want to go back to the first game of the season. Back at home, it was your first home game up against Belmont. What did you see from the guys in that 0-0 draw?
Yeah, a lot of resilience. Obviously, to get a clean sheet is always a positive. So at times under some tough pressure, particularly with the way Belmont plays and pumping balls into the box and some really tall, big, robust players. So I thought the intangibles, if you will, the grit to kind of push that away was wonderful. Obviously we want to have a little more presence in and around our own goal. But yeah, I think obviously again the positive certainly is being back home, like you mentioned, which it always feels like a long time with the way the college season is constructed. And then getting a clean sheet is definitely things that we can build upon.
Yeah, and I think I saw the same thing too, and especially I think last night in that matchup against UAB as well, holding them to only one goal, especially it came kind of at the 80th minute. So it was later on in the time, but still showed that resilience. Likewise, in that matchup, what did you see from them? It was your first road matchup, another big challenge. You get to come at home, then you get to go on the road to face off against UAB. What was that transition? What was the message leading into that matchup for the guys?
Yeah, I think at this point in the season, it's just progression. You want to be better than the previous game and take some steps forward. And I thought we did that last night. I think for us, the effort and, as I mentioned, the intangibles and the desire have been wonderful. We still need to just have a little bit more quality. In particular, in that final stage, in and around the goal, and hopefully continuing to create more chances, which I felt like we did last night and got the ball into some dangerous areas. But then again, just that last little bit of quality, that final product, whether it be delivery or final pass or, again, even shots, just still needs to be better from us.
Yeah, and that kind of leads into my next question. In the last two games, we haven't seen any goals scored from you guys. What do you think has been missing from the attack so far?
Yeah, I think a little bit of composure, and I mentioned just a little bit of quality. I feel like at times we're getting to some good spots, and then maybe getting a little rushed at times, or again, like that's the hardest part of the game. As you get closer to the goal, that's why those that do it so well make a lot of money. So for us, some of it is still guys learning each other, and some is building and reinstilling some confidence, I think. But we want guys to, particularly as we get in and around the goal, to be a little more risky and take some chances. But, again, that has to come with some quality. And I think we have it. It's just a matter of reestablishing it. And again, some of that I think comes with some confidence. And, as you start to see some positivity happen, then, that slowly builds up. And I do think we have the players to do so. And again, it's just maybe that final step. We're getting there, but, we still have a little ways to go.
And how is the group handling the early season results so far?
Yeah, no, the guys have come together pretty well, considering we've got a good amount of new guys coming in. I think anytime you want to start off fast. No one's going to tell you otherwise. So it does become I don't want to say a challenge, but something where you maybe have a different sense of urgency when the result isn't necessarily what you seek to begin the season. So, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, but, and similar to what we said going into the game last night, is we're still trying to figure ourselves out, and that does take a couple games at times, and we have such a short build up and runway to the season that sometimes it takes a few games to do that as well too. So I do think maybe there's a little bit of heightened urgency, but there's not panic. And the guys, again, I credit them big time in terms of the way they go about things. As I mentioned, they come ready to work, whether that be training or games. And I anticipate that'll be the same tomorrow. We got in pretty late last night. Today's our day off, and I imagine we'll be ready to go tomorrow.
Yeah, and I mean, I want to talk about that next matchup too. You guys are going back on the road again. This time you're going up to Liberty. What I know it's really early. You haven't had the chance to, you just got in kind of late from UAB. But looking at that matchup ahead with the way that they play and everything, what are you anticipating from that matchup?
Yeah, good team. Got to watch a little bit of them against Longwood a couple days ago. Yeah, I mean they're super organized. Kelly Finley, his teams are always known to be that, so they'll be tough to break down. Obviously, them. I've never been there personally, so getting the lay of the land, so to speak. I understand it's a really nice facility, and but going on the road again, I think there's some merit to that. This will be. We did UAB on a day trip. I think sometimes that first trip overnight is great for the guys, in terms of coming together as well too. So, yeah, no, I mean, listen, it's the nice thing about college soccer is when you have a moment of disappointment, there's not a lot of time in between to try and rectify that. So, like I said, we'll be anxious to train tomorrow and again move forward in a positive direction and put our best foot forward come Sunday.
I want to go back and ask a little bit about the guys as well. It really does seem like that there's just this really great bond between all of them. Even some of the new guys that have come in. It seems like it's just kind of meshed together really quick, really fast, and that's what you want to see. I think what I saw in Belmont too, how vocal everyone was on the bench as well. Not only from you guys, from the coaching staff, but also the players. What is it like to have that big leadership presence on the bench and kind of helping everyone out and lifting each other up on the field?
It's interesting you mentioned that because we brought that up yesterday, just at pregame meal, where we've got a fifth-year COVID senior and 18-year-old freshman, and an 18-year-old freshman's walking over and putting his arm around him and laughing, and those are things that we notice as a staff. And I think in terms of messaging, when you start talking about what you're playing for and whom you're playing for, it's easy to be identifiable within the locker room. So if guys feel that bond and want to play for the guy next to him, and we talk about roles a lot, and everybody wants that role to be one of the 11 on the field, but the reality of it is we've got 28 guys on the team. There's going to be more guys that aren't on it than are. So being able to, even if it's just for that moment, buy into what your role is and buy into each other, I think is important. And so far in a young season, those guys have definitely done that. And the baseline to that probably is we have good people here. It's easier for good people, I think, to mesh with each other, and we have a lot of different cultures that are sort of coming together. And I think that part of things is really healthy. And I'm a big believer that if that's your foundation, it's easy to build upon that, and hopefully those are things that we'll see throughout the season.
Thank you to Coach Brett Surrency, and thank you to Madison Crews. You're going to hear more from Madison all season long on the Panther Prowl. But up next, it's Aaliyah Faddoul of the Georgia State women's program. The women are 2 games into their season. They are 0-1-1 after opening the season at home on August 15th with a 2-2 draw in a very weird match against Chattanooga. Chattanooga scored very early on a set piece on a corner, and then the Panthers battled back. Sania Tucker scored in her college debut on an assist from Bree Barley, a good cross from Barley. Barley scored the goal that put the Panthers ahead 2-1 off of a corner, a powerful header from Elena Diaz's corner. And it looked like the Panthers were going to take the win in the opener. A late penalty gave Chattanooga the opportunity to tie it. Clarissa Salinas from the spot made that one finish 2-2. Georgia State went on the road for a rematch from last year's very close loss in Atlanta to Ole Miss of the SEC. And in a game where the Panthers played very well on the road, and some have said played better this time around against Ole Miss, against the Rebels, than they did in Atlanta last year, which was a very good performance. A weird goal off of a long throw ended up doing the Panthers in that time. Georgia State lost 2-0 in Oxford, Mississippi last Thursday. The Panthers are back in action hosting another SEC opponent. The Florida Gators come to Atlanta and the GSU Soccer Complex for a match on Thursday. You can watch that on ESPN Plus. You can always attend at the GSU Soccer Complex. And the Panthers will be back again on Sunday, a 1 o'clock kickoff as they host Western Carolina. Same thing. You can attend in person for free, or you can watch on ESPN Plus. I'll be on the call for both of those matches. I made my way over to the GSU Soccer Complex to catch up with Aaliyah Faddoul to talk about kind of her beginnings in the game, her aspirations in the game, and what she expects out of her Panthers in 2024. Here's my conversation with Aaliyah Faddoul. What's your first soccer memory?
My first soccer memory was probably when I was like 4, and it was like I would play on a team with all guys, but I think it was like I genuinely hated soccer. Like I would sit down on the field and pick dandelions, and my mom, who like was a soccer star at a young age and grew up playing soccer, was devastated because I'm her firstborn. She's like, oh my God, my daughter doesn't love soccer, and it's a passion that she wanted to share with me. So whatever, I had that game on a random Friday night when I was 4, and then I'd say the same time next year, I'm like, Mom, I want to play soccer. And then my mom was just glowing up with joy, and then boom. I think that is like the most like that my mom brings up like my early soccer childhood.
Tell me about your mom's love of soccer.
Well, my mom, so she was, from what I've heard, I didn't watch her play, but she was really good. Like, she had, like, Team Ontario under her belt. She was committed to Penn State, and then some family stuff happened, and then she didn't end up continuing with all that. But because I'm able to go and play soccer, she kind of lives it through me, you know? So she's just my biggest supporter, to be honest with you.
Tell me a little bit about growing up in Canada and falling in love with the game there.
Yeah, so I mean, in Canada, sports aren't as humongous. Like, it's a lot of education and different stuff going on. But then as soon as I found, like, there's a program called OPDL, and I jumped into that, like, I realized, like, all the way down the 401 from Windsor, where I'm from, to Toronto, like, there's a lot of great competition, you know, and I didn't even realize how many amazing players there were that would travel over to the States or go over to the States for college from Canada. But I mean, playing soccer in Canada was only a little bit of my career, as I would just cross to Michigan and play through there.
Yeah, tell me about that. So you
play
for a club based in Michigan, right?
Yeah. So that club, it's Liverpool FC out of Michigan. And I mean, truthfully, like, the girls on the team are like, no way you're from Canada. I'm like, dude, I'm like 20 minutes away. It's not that bad. But I would go over there like 3 times a week for practice, and then once, maybe twice a week for games. But I just found that the competition was a lot higher, and that's where I knew I wanted to continue with soccer, so that's where I stood.
Back to growing up and falling in love with the game, was there a player that you saw that you said, I want to be like that?
Mm-hmm. I mean, growing up, obviously, there was always like soccer on my television, and I would see this and I would see that. But I mean, as my mom would watch soccer, I would always watch Christine St. Clair, and knowing that she's like an amazing person off the field. I've heard so many amazing things from her. Like, my aunt actually met her, who lives in Toronto, and she was like, she's the most genuine person you'll ever meet in your life. And just hearing that alone, I'm like, regardless of how good she is on the soccer field, like, just hearing that she's a great person and helps out in different like ways off the field, like, easily inspires me.
You've had some experiences with Canadian youth national teams, right?
Mm-hmm. I got invited to one of the tryouts, well, a couple of the tryouts, and that competition was where we would actually play the players on the team. So big players like Olivia Smith, who just signed with Liverpool now, like, I played against her, and it kind of just showed me like the level that I needed to get to. But I think, like, although I didn't take it all the way with that, which was unfortunate because it was a huge opportunity, I'm glad to see the level that I need to be at to get to that opportunity. So I'm grateful for it.
That's obviously still a goal of yours, right?
100%. That's 100% the goal. I do want to represent Canada for sure.
When the opportunity came to come to Georgia State. What was that process like, and what did you know about Atlanta and the university?
So it was actually through my family, because I have my aunt here. She's my mom's twin sister, so we've always been super, super close. And she's like, Georgia State is a great school. Like, why don't you come to an ID camp? So I think I was just like, yeah, like, let's do it. It was kind of during COVID time, so like there was a bunch of stuff that like I was really thinking about. But we ended up coming here to an ID camp. I met Ed Joyce and some of the girls, and I'm like, I really like it. And then boom, I go to another ID camp and I get offered a scholarship, and I'm like, honestly, it just feels right. And then I went with that. So I already knew Atlanta because I would visit my aunt and everything like that. It's just Georgia State was unfamiliar to me up until the ID camp.
When you came in last year and started so well, you know, what do you put that down to? Was it the style of play? Is it the connection with you and your teammates? Was it just kind of lightning in a bottle?
Truthfully, I think it was a mix of all of that, because like as a goal of mine was when I get here, I'm like, I need to make friends. Like, these are the girls, like I need to connect well with them off the field, so on the field it's even better, you know? And like, after all, I'll be spending 4 years here. Like I need to make some sort of connections and bonds with these girls. Turns out it was easier than expected, so our correlation off the field just correlated on the field, and it was super, super easy like that. But I think also coming into it, I also had like a freshman hunger, you know? I wanted to be on the field. I wanted to make a statement. I wanted to do things like these, you know? So it kind of all was lightning in a bottle, all of the mix.
How important in your mind is that connection off the field in terms of making the team play better on the field?
I think it's huge. Like, I mean, if you have a good relationship, like for me, I have a great relationship with my six, so that's right under me, Elena Diaz, and it's like so easy because it's almost like, it's the weirdest thing, like we're great friends off the field, but it's like once we get on the field, it's like we know where each other's going to be. Like, it's kind of a weird correlation, but it works definitely well, so it helps being friends with everybody.
So the start of the 2024 season, it's felt like you guys have been right there in terms of breaking out, and it just hasn't quite happened. What's missing in your mind?
I think, well, I would like to start by saying we're doing everything that we can. Like, I see like grit now, you know, compared to last year. Like, we've played better against Ole Miss this year than we did last year, and we just didn't get the result that we wanted. I think a lot of times it's like that extra little touch on the ball in the final third that sets us up for a better shot or a better assist or something like that. So we're missing a little bit of something in the final third, but we're going to figure that out. I mean, this week in practice was really solid, so I just can't wait for the game tomorrow against Florida.
What is your personal goals for 2024?
I think just building off of 2023, really, because if I am popping 7 or 8 goals in last year, I think I want to do like 10 to 14 this year, to be honest with you. Like, I want goals, I want assists, I want more wins, you know, like not even just for me, like as a team, I think we deserve more wins. We would like fall short off of like some silly incident in the game, and I think that this year we increase our sharpness by a little bit, and then 2024 season blows out 2023 season like out of the water for sure.
Do you have a game day routine? Do you have a game day? Like, you're like superstitions.
I have so many superstitions. I probably couldn't even name them all right now, but I mean, every day before I come to the facility, I get ready at my own place and play loud music with my roommates, Brooke Nelson and Therese Brink. And then we head on over, energy's high, there's music in the locker room. But for me personally, it's like as soon as I take off my personal earphones and I'm cheering with the girls and I walk onto the field, I warm up right behind Brooke Nelson with Viv right behind. It has to be, like, it's exactly me right there. And then my passing drill, like with Brooke and Reese, like we always do it us three. I always do a little bit of dribbling on my own, like just right before we get into it, actually, just to like get my own touches on the ball, think a little bit, breathe, relax, and remember I'm here for fun. But like there are so many superstitions that I do that I couldn't even point out right now because there's so many. Like even just putting my right shin guard and cleat on first, it matters to me. Yeah.
Pre-game meal, do you have the same one? Does it matter to you?
Yeah, I always get, so whenever we do pre-game meals, it's normally like subs from Jersey Mike's or Publix or something, I always do like a classic ham sub on white bread with, it's like the most basic sandwich ever with like cheese and lettuce and mayo, and I think that's about it. But I think it's just enough like carbs, and then I have a little bag of chips with it. I also sneak some candy in sometimes because I just feel like sugar gets me going. But anyways, that's my pregame meal.
That'll do it for this edition of the Panther Prowl. Big thanks to Aaliyah Faddoul and to Coach Brett Surrency. Don't forget, the men are in action on Sunday, 2 o'clock on the road at Liberty. You can watch on ESPN+. And 2 games in Atlanta for the Georgia State women's program. Thursday night, 7 o'clock kickoff against the Florida Gators. Sunday, 1 o'clock kickoff against Western Carolina. You can watch both of those on ESPN+, and I will be hanging out with you there. More to come from the Panthers next week. Some big games coming to town. Kennesaw State coming to the GSU Soccer Complex. We'll talk about that next week on the Panther Prowl.